Let's go! Tristan Lee, Korey Foreman, committing on the same day. And there's even another LSU target committing on that day. Can Coach O pull off a recruiting miracle? The greatest class ever at LSU in the middle of one of the worst seasons in the LSU modern championship era. Something crazy happened with Maason Smith, and we're not talking enough about it. And it's something I kind of, sort of don't like about recruiting. That's coming up. And is LSU done at one key position? No. And I think at this certain position, fans feel a little too comfortable with where they are currently, okay? So if you want analysis like this, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. It's a road to 2K. Our live streams on Tuesday nights. Last night was so freaking cool. Let's start off with the big breaking news. Anthony Hundley decommits, which opens up an extra slot in this recruiting class, because it is really relevant because these slots are getting thin. You know, it's kind of weird because he's been one of the longest committed LSU Tigers, and if you actually follow recruiting, you know where I'm going with this. But the bottom line is he's no longer a part of this class. Korey Foreman, Tristan Lee both announced they are committing on the date of the Army All-American game. Now, this is a key fact. There will be no game. In fact, NBC Sports is just going to do like a 2-hour spectacular featuring stories with the recruits. And I love, and I've been saying the game, but it's actually the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. And last year, it was a pretty fruitful day when LSU kind of surprisingly got Dwight McGlothern. And this year is going to be the most important year of this bowl game, probably for LSU ever. Because if they get either Korey Foreman or Tristan Lee, that is going to solidify a top 3 recruiting class for LSU. I mean, they're already at number 3. What we do know is LSU did generate a lot of positive buzz with that Tiger turnout before the season. And after the Tiger turnout, Korey Foreman, all the way from California, traveled for the first game against Mississippi State with his parents. So obviously, there is some real interest to get the nation's number 1 player according to the 247 Sports Composite. Or is he the number 1 player in the nation? One big development. We'll talk about it in a moment. He does want to get another visit out to LSU. 247 Sports had some great info on Foreman. And he said he doesn't mind that LSU isn't having the absolute best season. His final 5 includes LSU, Arizona State, Georgia is another school, Clemson, also USC. But he also mentioned how Elias Ricks out in California is having a good year for LSU. You know, it's all positive vibes going into his big day. But, you know, when you chat about Korey Foreman, you got to also chat about Tristan Lee, because we spent a whole video last week and my DMs were just filled with you guys saying that this guy is the number 1 prospect, not necessarily for his talent, but because of need, where LSU has really struggled to recruit the offensive line position. Only 1 4-star lineman in last year's class, and so far, so close to the early signing period, only 1 offensive lineman in this class, and Garrett Dellinger. And that's just 1 total. At least LSU had 2 other 3-stars in last year's class. And our film study, that shows you how bad the LSU offense is right now. So thank you guys so much for all the support on that. But if you did watch it, you saw that LSU really needs some offensive line help. And if Tristan Lee could play right away, it would help out quite a bit. This is what's interesting, okay? Most of you have said to me that Tristan Lee is your number 1 recruit for LSU to go get. Even though he is not really close. I mean, they're both 5-stars, but Korey Foreman, across all boards, is a top 5 prospect. So it's fascinating because so much of Korey Foreman's recruitment has been tied to Maason Smith. And I want to chat about Maason just for a second. I checked Rivals a few weeks ago, and I mostly look at the 247 composite, but Maason Smith was the number 5 nationally ranked player overall. I checked Rivals earlier today and Tiger Details. Now, Maason Smith is the number 1 player, period. Both of them are really close friends. Everyone's been saying that this is a package deal, right? So Maason Smith decision date has been set, December 16th. His Final Four includes the heavy hitters, Georgia, Alabama, and Miami. So one thing I would note is the only schools in both of their final schools, Maason Smith and Korey Foreman, are LSU and Georgia. So if you are a package deal person, it looks as if it's down to those 2 schools. Whatever happens is going to happen. You would just feel more comfortable when Maason Smith is already committed before Korey Foreman. Now, this is what's fascinating. There are still a lot of needs to be filled. And is there going to be room? What is Ed Orgeron going to do? This is a good mess to have with the number 3 overall class, but it's also a complicated one because we've talked so much about January 2nd, right? It's such a big day for LSU recruiting. But what if LSU doesn't get either Tristan Lee or Korey Foreman? Well, there is another prospect committing on January 2nd, and he couldn't be any closer to LSU. It is Jardin Gilbert, who plays at University High, which is on Baton Rouge's campus. Now, U-High prospects can basically go anywhere. So think about all the U-High players over the years, whether it was last year with Jaquelin Roy, or you go all the way back to Nicholas Brissett. But there are quite a few of them that have gone to Bama, including Dylan Moses and Tim Williams. So you don't really know. It's kind of weird. They are legit right on campus. They play their games in a stadium which is basically connected to the LSU practice facility. So Jardin Gilbert has always wanted that coveted LSU offer. He gets it. Well, LSU already has 4 safeties committed. 2 safeties I think for sure are going to play safety, Derek Davis Jr. and Sage Ryan, who's also going to play some nickel. But there's also 2 other safeties in Kari G and Matthew Langlois, who I believe will both be linebackers. But still, those are 4 safeties, and you have 2 other inside or traditional linebackers committed, and then you have 5 to 6-ish defensive end players committed. So you're kind of loaded on defense already with commitments. Now, one position where LSU, you think you're good, but you might not be as good as you might think, is running back. Now, you have Kev Falk, who is the LSU running backs coach, and you think about the great LSU running backs, Kev Falk's probably the first name you mention. This year's been a meh year at running back. Now, a lot of that has to do with the play of the offensive line, like we mentioned earlier. I will say, Ty Davis-Price has played pretty well. John Emery Jr. has been meh, and Chris Curry, I don't really know what happened to Chris Curry. And you still have Kevontre Bradford, and like I mentioned in the film study, Josh Williams, the 5th string back essentially. He played a few snaps early against Texas A&M. And you got to ask yourself this question. Have any of the running backs looked spectacular? And the answer to that is no. Now, Ty Davis-Price had a very good game catching out of the backfield and pass protection and running against Arkansas. And he should get a lot of credit for that. But that was an Arkansas defense that was without most of their defensive line. Now, a player could be very good. Ty Davis-Price is very good. John Emery's inconsistent. We haven't seen the 5-star talent really play at a 5-star level. They can be good, but are they Jeremy Hill level? Are they Clyde Edwards-Helaire level? And if the answer to that question is no, then you need to keep recruiting the position. So LSU has a running back committed in Keiner, but Armoni Goodwin opens up his commitment from Auburn. Now, why is that interesting? Well, he's been heavily connected to LSU for quite some time. Kamar Wheaton is also a player that LSU has recruited. He is a 5-star, number 1 overall running back. Looks like he's going to go to Oklahoma or somewhere else. Keiner looks really good. I really like him. But Armoni Goodwin is just another hoss to bring into the class. Now, what's interesting is LSU looks pretty good at that position for the class of 2022 with the best running back name you can have, Le'Veon Moss. Hopefully he's a mix of Le'Veon, well, Randy Moss is a receiver. But still, that's a great name. I just love the name Le'Veon. Le'Veon Moss, class of 2022, a top 100 running back out of Struma in Baton Rouge. So class of 2022 looks pretty good at that position. And you never know what can open in the transfer window. Heck, Trey Sermon left Oklahoma to go to Ohio State. I think LSU wants to get another running back. Subscriber shout out. I mentioned the film study earlier. It's wild. I did not think people would watch an hour and a half of film study, but yeah, I knew just putting out that much content to consume would be tough for some of you. I mean, come on, we're all busy. I get it. But the reason why I posted all of it, but I want you to see the patterns, how Texas A&M were going back to the same blitz patterns and the same coverage patterns, and LSU was not making adjustments to it. Larry has said this a lot. James Craig is not getting the job done with this O-line, and this hasn't been his best year. I am really shocked that LSU has not played more guys. I don't know what's holding them back. And this is where you have to start wondering if the rigors of recruiting is starting to take away from the actual coaching, especially in this crazy year. And James Craig is under a lot of pressure to get another offensive lineman in this class. I would like to see Dummerville. I'd like to see the other true freshman. I would like to see Bradford. Or, for you guys that have hit me up 1,000 times about this, I would like to see Cardell Thomas. Boom! Power hour LSU. Woo! Great video today. How about it? What are we eating? Are we doing... I think we're doing flounder. I don't think I've ever had flounder. Any flounder fans out there? I've always been a salmon guy. Salmon is better than steak if cooked right.